Welcome back to LillySquared,
a video podcast by women for women.
We were away from the show last week because of Thanksgiving, but it feels so good to be back. This is what I did while being away. I mean, I was in Colorado. Obviously, I went home to visit my family, and I'm kind of sad because it's November, and there's literally no snow in Colorado.
Which is surprising.
If you guys remember from a couple weeks ago, I was in that boot for a ridiculous amount of time, and I actually just got out of it like a couple days ago. And I was trying to convince my parents to let me go snowboarding, and that didn't happen. I am out of the boot, though, and I do not have to get surgery.
Yay.
So I guess that's the good news. But what were you up to?
Well, like you said, I'm so happy to be back, and I did go home. I had to tell you when I went home, though, I was only in Chicago for a few days. I was with my family, and then Wednesday we left for Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
And we got to see my sister, and we got to spend Thanksgiving there, which was really nice because for years, we haven't been able to do that as a family. So, and I got to watch live college football the day after Thanksgiving. Iowa State football too. So it wasn't KU football, but
yeah. But we
really
did get a KU basketball game on Thanksgiving.
We did.
That was kind of nice.
Yeah, but
except that tournament didn't go as planned. But
what are we gonna do about it?
It's fine. It's fine.
We got third place though in the loser break, which is
yay. Yay.
So all right. There we go again, getting off topic about everything. So it's obvious we can talk about sports and football forever, but let's go into the topic for this week. Like you said, we did get a basketball game on Thanksgiving, and the women's team also played on Thanksgiving. So what I was watching was not the way they were playing. I was kind of just looking at the way they were presenting themselves, walking off the sideline, sitting on the bench, what they were wearing, how their hair was, and it just made me ultimately think about the big difference in women's uniforms compared to men's uniforms this week.
Yeah. And I agree. I think one difference we can, I guess, see is that women will go onto the court or field or wherever, and they'll feel pressure to look not only in front of the media, but the way they look while they're playing. People think they should have their makeup and hair done while they're playing. No. That's not how it should look.
Like you said, feeling pressured because there's so many cameras on you, while I feel like male athletes can just focus on playing. So, for example, there is a difference between male volleyball players in their uniforms versus women volleyball players in their uniforms. I think, if we pull the image up on the TV, I think the image says more than we can say about this. Ultimately, it's clear that female athletes are wearing tighter clothing that shows more skin, while male athletes tend to wear looser clothing.
Yeah, and I do want to add that there are arguments from women athletes that the top and bottoms that they wear help with their overall performance, and to some, it is one of the most comfortable things to wear. Professional female athletes have expressed that they do wear the uniforms to show individuals how athletic they are when they are competing. However, other female athletes feel the way the uniforms take away from the idea that they are athletes, and other arguments express that women athletes what they wear can be traced back to gender roles, I guess.
Yeah, and I've seen those arguments too, and that argument about gender roles, they can be stemmed back to all the way to the 19th century, which was the era where women were eventually able to participate in sports and on the Olympic stage. However, female athletes were required to wear uniforms just like male athletes, but the uniforms that they were wearing or required to wear were targeted to be feminine, modest, and designed to attract a potential husband rather than show and promote their athleticism.
Now that we are in the 20th century, there has been major improvements when it comes to specific gender roles, and yes, changes in certain uniforms, but female athletes still can find themselves battling these so-called uniform dress codes. For example, the Norwegian women's beach handball team was fined for improper clothing during the European Championships. And just because they were wearing shorts and not required to wear bikini pants.
And I read
Mm-hmm.
was the requirement. Like, you had to wear the bikini bottoms and the sports bra, and you couldn't wear what you were comfortable with.
Yeah.
And it's hypocritical in the sense that female athletes get fined because they don't wear the specific attire, and that the female team got fined, but the Norwegians men's team did not, and they were in shorts and a looser like tank top. However, the women's team did end up winning a medal in that tournament and took matters into their own hands when they were posing for a picture. They were not okay being sexualized and being told what to wear. So the women's team ended up changing to their shorts and, like I said before, pose for a picture. However, they were ultimately fined for this, which I think was a couple of $1,000s. I'm not sure, but that's not as important. The fine just isn't as important as standing up for what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. And there were similar dress code protests conducted by the female athletes at the European Artistic Gymnastics Championship in Switzerland in 2020. German gymnasts decided to take a stance against being sexualized based on the specific uniforms that they wore when competing. Sarah Voss decided to wear a full bodysuit when performing her routine. This was a powerful move in many aspects, and one aspect that stood out to me was the fact that she did it to make sure that the way her body looks is not important rather than her athletic ability, and her overall performance were just the most important.
Mm-hmm. And no doubt, having the ability to choose what you want to wear as a female athlete had to make those athletes community, like, make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, whatever I'm going to wear, I'm wearing it to show my best performance, show my athleticism on the stage. There was also smaller protests that women are beginning to challenge the way their bodies are presented on a so-called professional stage. Like, it doesn't just stem from gymnastics. I mean, like we said before, the volleyball team has done it, the tennis team has been doing, the women's tennis team has been doing it as well.
And it is great to see a push in female athletes to have the idea of sexualization to be stopped. However, it seems that the media disregards this idea because female athletes are still extremely sexualized, especially when it comes to sports magazines. I would like to mention the sports magazine Illustrated. The purpose of the magazine is to give readers a deeper understanding and inside scoop on specific sporting events and athletes.
And that's the main idea of the magazine, but research has shown within the magazine that male athletes are projected as strong, masculine, and determined, while female athletes are deemed sexy and approachable within these magazines. I mean, female athletes in these magazines are clearly underrepresented for their athletic abilities.
Yeah, and when you look deeper in these magazines, and if there's to say at least, like, let's say the story about Lindsey Vonn or Gabby Douglas, and their photos are represented, their big cover photo may not be them posing in their full-on athletic uniform or to have a look of seriousness, determination, whatever, etc. What you're going to see is a smile. They may not even be wearing their uniform. They may be posed in a dress, skirt, or something that is more revealing because according to the media, this is what sells to audiences, which is not fair, and the idea needs to be changed as well.
And what you just said, like, I have to agree with, like, you just have, I feel like as a person, you're going to have to go deeper within the magazine to clearly depict those differences. Like, LeBron James can, like, be posed cross-armed, like, that look of determination in his face, and you're going to see a basketball next to him. You're going to see him in a uniform, but female athletes in these magazines are going to have to be portrayed as feminine, and that's like goes back to a gender role which we're in the 20th century now, so like you said, this idea of sexualization needs, and the way women athletes or female athletes have to dress when competing needs to be changed and stopped.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go out to Soleil, who is on Jayhawk Boulevard right now, giving us the inside scoop on how students feel about what female athletes wear while competing.
Thanks, Lily. I'm on Jayhawk Boulevard, where I'm going to be asking students their opinions about uniforms on women's athletes. Do you believe that women feel pressure to look a certain way in their uniform?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that there are like patriarchal standards that dictate how women look, especially in physical activities like sports, when really it should be up to the players.
I think they do. I think it's based off of like professionality. I think if they dress a certain way, they may not be like taken seriously, and they may find that like difficult to work with.
Absolutely, yes.
Why?
I think that women are expected to be more revealing and sexy in their uniforms versus men.
Thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Lily, in the studio.
Thank you, Soleil, for that, as always.
Yeah, it was nice to see that the people she interviewed kind of had the same input and like stance that we have on it too. So, I mean, we're not the only ones just sitting in here depicting this topic. Other people see it too.
Like we say every week, there's so many other people out there sharing the same opinion, want change, etc. So we're going to take a short break, and then Soleil will be back to give you her latest input and news in KU football.
Did you know that in the United States, between 9 and 12 million kids don't have internet access at home for school and remote learning? This issue is called the digital divide and has become more prevalent as schools become more reliant on computers and cell phones for school. The problem is families with low incomes are not able to provide internet access for their children, putting them at a disadvantage in school compared to other kids who can afford devices like iPhones and Mac computers. For more information, please visit everyoneon.org so we can close the gap on the digital divide.
Welcome back to another KU Sports Recap. The Jayhawks wrapped up their final game of the season against West Virginia at home this past weekend. Kansas fell short to the Mountaineers 34-28 on senior night. The defense caused 2 turnovers, but that was not enough to stop West Virginia. Redshirt freshman Jacob Borcella kicked 2 field goals in the first quarter, and fellow freshman Jared Casey scored an 8-yard pass from sophomore Jalen Daniels. However, the defense could not hold the Mountaineers, and the Jayhawks traveled 21-13 going into the half. In the third quarter, junior Gavin Potter scored a 28-yard pick six to tie the game.
Gavin Potter picks off Jared Dagey, and he takes it back, a pick six.
But again, the defense couldn't hold, and going into the fourth quarter, Kansas was down 10 points. With the time running out, Daniel scored a 3-yard run to close the gap, but KU could not recover the onside kick, and the comeback fell short. The Jayhawks finished their season 2-10 with their wins against South Dakota and Texas.
Living a healthy lifestyle can be very important. Make sure you get plenty of exercise every day. Even your dogs could use exercise and water. Look like this, not like this. Look like this, not this.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Lily Wachowski. And man, doesn't it feel great to be back after a long break? With this long break came Thanksgiving, and what's Thanksgiving without football? Am I right? We had 3 games this Thanksgiving Day. So here we are, week 12, Thanksgiving Day, 2 teams, the Bears and Detroit Lions, went up against each other. Both teams had a few things on the line. Now, I'm not talking about playoffs being on the line. I'm talking about the risk of coaches being fired. Rumors were flying around the league about Matt Nagy's job a few weeks prior. He was at high risk of being fired. The Bears could not win against Detroit. But through all the rumors and drama, the Bears were able to outlast the Lions through the fourth quarter and beat Detroit 16-14. Yes, the season is lost for the Bears, but at least they were able to prove that they can still beat bad teams. Maybe they needed a game-winning field goal as well, but Andy Dalton went 24 for 39 for 317 yards. I know Bears fans want Justin Fields back, but Andy Dalton proved that he can still be a successful starter. We will see where the Bears will end in the NFC North and if Matt Nagy gets let go by the end of the season. And my guess is gonna be yes. More NFL news comes from the America's Game of the Week. The Packers and Rams were finally up against each other after a long-awaited rematch since the 2020 divisional round playoff game. The Rams had 2 weeks to prepare for this matchup, while the Packers were still preparing to play without some of their key players. It was shown early on that the Rams seemed incapable of playing from behind. Their offense could not find the momentum or rhythm to come back from being down. Granted, quarterback Matt Stafford was dealing with some injuries coming into this week. I would say he had an okay, decent performance. He was 21 for 38 for 302 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And Odell Beckham Jr. finally got his first touchdown as a Ram. I say that he's integrating nicely within the team, but he probably will not be fully effective until next season. Yes, the Packers still sit at number 2 within the NFC playoff standings. But if I was any team right now, I would be afraid going up against the Packers. The team is not even fully healthy right now, but the offense and defense continue to play at a very effective level. And Rodgers is not lowering his bar when it comes to the way he's been playing. This is the second game in a row where the quarterback has thrown for over 300 yards. Overall, it does not seem that the Packers are slowing down, rather they are heating up. The Packers will now walk into a well-deserved bye week with another win and knowing that they pretty much have secured the North. And now some news from the AFC East side. All I can really say is Mac Jones. This rookie QB is looking promising, which is probably bringing relief to Patriots fans, but not a lot of relief to the rest of the AFC. Mac Jones proved once again why he deserves to be a Patriot starter. The rookie pretty much played a mistake-free game against the Titans. Jones completed 23 of 32 passes and 310 yards and 2 touchdowns without a turnover. Jones ended up finishing a perfect 11 for 11 on play-action passes. And I gotta say, perfect is a word that is rarely used within the NFL. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited to see where this rookie QB is able to do come playoffs. Oh, one last thing. Remember how I mentioned how the Chiefs were on top of their division a couple weeks ago? Well, they still are after beating Dallas 19-9 this past week. So for all the Chiefs fans out there right now, I'm gonna say, you can probably expect to see the Chiefs in the playoffs. All right, that's all I have for Week 12. Thanks for tuning in for this NFL recap. Now, after this short break, Lily has her latest news on who you should pick up for your NFL fantasy team.
Diversity. What is diversity? It can be an umbrella term for a variety of things, ranging from diversity among different people, places, cultures, and ideas, to the way people express themselves and the way they interact with the world. In today's world, people interact with one another and share their thoughts through social media. Let's take Twitter, for example. How are people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, and sexual orientations with different political beliefs, interests, and job titles using this platform differently? Currently, celebrities are interacting with their fans on Twitter by speaking their minds, sharing their beliefs, and supporting social issues. Professional sports figures and organizations in the United States are using Twitter to support social causes and bring attention to current social matters, such as encouraging their fans to vote. Users are voicing their opinions about current issues surrounding racial inequalities, social injustice, and police brutality in the United States. There's diversity in the way people are discussing the upcoming presidential election, especially regarding their opinions of each candidate. Different news outlets are not only highlighting stories in the US, but are talking about important stories from around the world. But many Twitter users don't post about controversial matters or social issues at all. Rather, they use their platform to create memes and post funny content for entertainment. While many topics going around this app involve social issues and political opinions, Twitter creates a space where people can pull together collections of diverse thoughts, comments, opinions, goals, and even a little humor too. So how can we use this platform to express our differences? More importantly, how can we use it to learn from each other's differences today?
Hello everyone, and it has been a minute. A lot has happened since I was in front of the camera last time, fantasy football wise. And you all know I have a successful fantasy team right now. And last week, I got this trade proposal notification, which has not yet happened for me this season. I wish one of my friends from the J School was around me to see my face when I glanced at the proposal. I was in shock. I kept saying, this cannot be real. I'm gonna throw up this proposal over here so you guys can take a look at it for yourself. But I mean, seriously, I'm still shocked that this is real and that, of course, I obviously accepted it, although I do want Tony Pollard back. I'm currently second in my division, and I am so beyond ready for playoffs now with this monster house of a team. Trading is one of the most thrilling parts of fantasy football. So why am I talking so much about trades right now? Because I never have this year. Because the trade deadline for fantasy ESPN leagues that uses default settings is Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. After the deadline passes, roster altercations will only be made exclusively through the waiver wire. So let's get right into your waiver wire pickups for this week to consider. There are 4 teams to note that are on a bye week, and those teams do include the Green Bay Packers, Carolina Panthers, Cleveland Browns, and the Tennessee Titans. First up, I have Alexander Mattison, running back for the Minnesota Vikings. While Dalvin Cook left the game early with a dislocated shoulder, Mattison stepped in for Cook for multiple other occasions already this season. He's had 2 games this season in which he's seen at least 25 rushing attempts and put up 23.1 and 25.6 points in week 3 and 5 respectively. With word that Cook could be headed to the injury reserve, Mattison has a massive value right now and is a top 10 consideration on a weekly basis until Cook returns. Up next, I suggest Chuba Hubbard, running back for the Carolina Panthers. Also, another player who is expected to step up big time with an injured teammate. In this case, it's Christian McCaffrey again, who is expected to be out for the rest of the season. Hubbard should find himself back in the starting lineup. He has a 6-game stretch earlier this season in which he had the opportunity to start and turn that into double-digit carries and at least 9 fantasy points in every game. But Hubbard has a volume on his side and should be a low-end running back 2 or a strong flex consideration. Next up, I have Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. Bourne has yet another standout Sunday for the Patriots in Week 12 as he had a pair of receiving touchdowns and 61 yards on 5 catches. Bourne now has at least 10 fantasy points in his 6 of the last 10 games and at least 4 catches in his past 5 of 6 games. Bourne has not yet reached 100 receiving yards in a game this season, but his volume has been steady enough lately, and he's catching an absurd percent of his targets, 86.2% over the past 5 games, making him a consideration in a deeper league. Adding Bourne in a free agency this offseason was a very nice move by the Patriots, I will say. Next up, I am suggesting Kadarius Toney for the New York Giants. Even though a quad injury kept him off the field in Week 12 and his roster percentage remained understandably low, call this a gut feeling as Toney's talent is undeniable and the Giants are still looking for spark plugs on offense. They need some help. Toney is so special with football in his hands and has 3 games this season with at least 9 targets already. There's speculation that he can be a fantasy force when he's healthy and has opportunities coming his direction. He's a bench stash in case the breakout I'm hopeful for takes place down the stretch. He'd be a guy whose upside could be useful if you're in a matchup where you need a bunch of home runs to be upset as a strong opponent. All right, guys, that's all I have for you this week, but join me next time at the same time for more fantasy advice. And I do want to thank you guys for joining us this week on this episode of LillySquared. See you guys next week. Bye, y'all.